What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Wednesday, November 20th, 2024, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is noon Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from Eastern Europe. So it looks like Ukraine has fired the British Storm Shadow missiles into Russia for the first time. Multiple mainstream media outlets are now reporting this, citing various sources. You can see here Financial Times, Bloomberg, Al Jazeera, Newsweek, Politico are all reporting that Ukraine has launched Storm Shadow missiles into Russia for the first time. And we're also hearing that the Biden administration authorized the use of British Storm Shadow missiles to strike Russian territory. The decision was needed by Great Britain to allow Ukraine to strike Russia, as the missiles contain American components. Okay, so looks like what I reported on Sunday that was in the French newspaper Le Figaro. They put out that article that the UK had already approved Storm Shadow missiles and that France approved Scalp missiles. And then they retracted the story. And then they retracted that story. Well, it looks like the permission was granted by Biden on Sunday for not just the ATACMS, the American short-range ballistic missile, but also the Storm Shadow missile for Britain. Okay, so this is extremely serious, guys. This is basically the worst case scenario. This is what could cause Putin to do something really drastic to bring back the balance. And we're hearing that multiple countries have evacuated their embassies in the capital of Ukraine. There's intelligence coming in that Russia is planning a massive strike on the capital of Ukraine as soon as today. The embassies have closed in Kyiv. Okay, this is extremely serious, guys. We also have footage coming in from Russia in the Kursk region showing these Storm Shadow missiles. So guys, this is historic. Sounds like probably 24 Storm Shadow missiles hitting this town in Russia. British cruise missiles used by Ukraine to strike Russian territory. Very, very serious. And Dmitry Peskov, the spokesman for the Kremlin, said yesterday that the use of Western missiles by the Ukrainian armed forces against the Russian Federation in accordance with the new doctrine may involve a nuclear response. So the new doctrine he's referring to is the new nuclear doctrine that Putin signed yesterday. And this new doctrine says that Russia can use nuclear weapons against non-nuclear countries if the non-nuclear country is being supported by a nuclear country, basically allowing Russia to nuke Ukraine. And we now have reports coming in that the Russian Federation has evacuated its political officials to bunkers in the Ural Mountains. Russian President Putin boarded an aircraft in Moscow at 3:30 a.m. Moscow time Sunday night into Monday and was flown to the Ural Mountains, as well as high-ranking Russian military officers and their families were also flown to the Urals. And last night and today we had a Russian Doomsday plane airborne. This aircraft had the call sign RA64529, and it's a Tupolev Tu-14PU. It performs the same functions as the US E-4B Night Watch or US Doomsday plane. So this is extremely concerning, guys, okay? Putin has been evacuated to the Urals. Multiple high-ranking Russian officials evacuated to the Urals. And yesterday evening, we had as many as 8 Russian VIP planes go east to Siberia and the Urals. You can see them all here. A variety of different types of Russian Air Force planes all taking off at the same time. And we're hearing reports that Russia is planning to use an ICBM against the capital of Kyiv. So this could be preparations for that. And the embassies of the United States, Greece, Italy, and Spain in Ukraine have suspended operations today and closed their doors. And the embassy of the Republic of Kazakhstan in Ukraine is recommending that citizens of Kazakhstan leave the territories close to the places of active hostilities or consider leaving Ukraine altogether. Wow. And here we have an official update from the U.S. Embassy in Ukraine. This was posted early this morning. It says here, the U.S. Embassy in Kyiv has received specific information of a potential significant air attack on November 20. Out of an abundance of caution, the embassy will be closed, and embassy employees are being instructed to shelter in place. The U.S. Embassy recommends U.S. citizens be prepared to immediately shelter in the event an air alert is announced, okay? So, guys, specific information of a potential significant air attack on November 20. Absolutely insane, guys. Okay, for the U.S. to close its embassy, that is very serious. Greece, Italy, and Spain as well. And Ukrainian intelligence is reporting that Russian forces are preparing to launch the RS-26 Rubezh ICBM, which has a hypersonic warhead known as the Avangard. The Avangard is maneuverable and flies up to Mach 30, allowing it to penetrate all of Ukraine's air defenses and hit decision-making centers. Okay, so literally Russia is going to launch an ICBM at Ukraine potentially today with this Avangard hypersonic glide vehicle, according to Ukrainian intelligence. That's why they're evacuating these embassies, and whether it's going to have a nuclear payload or a conventional payload, we don't know, okay? But Peskov said himself yesterday, after the news broke that the ATACMS were used, that a nuclear response may occur. And then right after that, Ukraine launches multiple Storm Shadow missiles. We're not talking about one Storm Shadow missile here. You saw the footage, okay? There were like 30 missiles launched at Russia, okay? So there could be a nuclear response, guys. As soon as tonight, we could see a mushroom cloud over Ukraine. Okay, and I'm going to be covering everything live. I do have my 24/7 live stream up right now. I do have my own radio system with a 400-foot antenna, so I can pick up the nuclear forces of the U.S. and Russia. And the Russian military has reportedly moved a significant number of Tu-95s and Tu-160 bombers to Engels Air Base in preparations for this big strike on Ukraine. And Vladimir Putin's spy chief warned the West on Wednesday that it risked disastrous consequences if the U.S. and its European allies stoke a direct military confrontation with Russia over Ukraine. Sergei Narishkin, the head of Russia's Foreign Intelligence Service, said, quote, attempts by individual NATO allies to participate in providing for possible long-range strikes with Western weapons deep into Russian territory will not go unpunished. And Ukraine's military intelligence claims to have conducted a successful strike on a Russian command post in the Belgorod region. And the Finnish government has published a guide for crisis management, and this is following in Sweden's footsteps. Sweden has distributed over 5.2 million World War III nuclear war survival manuals to their citizens. Russia is now mass producing fallout shelters made from shipping containers. And last night in the 24/7 stream, I went over the Swedish World War III survival manual, and basically 28 out of 32 pages covered preparations for war and nuclear attack. Only 4 pages out of 32 were dedicated to other topics like cyber attacks, terrorism, and natural disasters, okay? So the main focus here is preparing for a war, possibly a nuclear attack, and now the Finnish government is publishing a guide just like Sweden. And the U.S. military may run out of ammunition in the event of a conflict in the Pacific region due to aid provided to Ukraine and Israel, the head of the U.S. Indo-Pacific Command said today. And the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov reiterated today that a freeze of the conflict in Ukraine along the existing front lines would be unacceptable to Russia. So this is pretty interesting, and it's kind of a slap in the face to Trump because Trump wants to have this peace deal with Russia, which would involve freezing the lines where they are. And here we have the Kremlin saying that a freeze along the current front lines would be unacceptable to Russia, okay? And French President Emmanuel Macron told Russian President Vladimir Putin on Tuesday to climb down from making nuclear threats after Russia lowered its threshold for launching a nuclear strike earlier in the day. He said, "Be reasonable and refrain from showing an aggressive approach to the international community," Macron urged Putin in comments made on the sidelines of the G20 summit in Rio de Janeiro. Russia is becoming a force for destabilization, and the Chinese vessel Yi Peng 3 was chased and intercepted by the Danish Navy ship Y311 Sullivan. It has now been stopped and will be investigated. The Yi Peng 3 is suspected of damaging 2 underwater telecom cables connecting Finland with Germany and Sweden with Lithuania. The captain of the Chinese ship, most likely responsible for damaging the cables at the bottom of the Baltic Sea, has been identified as a Russian citizen, okay, and this was reported by Bild, which is a German newspaper. So this is very, very serious, guys. And Ukraine attacked a Russian weapons depot 500 miles into Russia with drones. They hit the 13th rocket and artillery arsenal in Nizhny Novgorod. The site stores shells for mortars and artillery, missiles for Grad systems, Smerch, Uragan MLRS, Iskander, North Korean KN-23, as well as air defense missiles for S-300, S-400, and the Tor systems. So massive strike by Ukraine on this Russian depot 500 miles into Russia. Wow. And Serbian President Vučić says Vladimir Putin will not hesitate to use nuclear weapons if necessary. He said, quote, "If the security of Moscow is threatened, if Putin sees that there is no other way out, he will not hesitate for a minute." And Lloyd Austin, the U.S. Secretary of Defense, confirmed that the U.S. has authorized the provision of anti-personnel landmines to Ukraine. One official said the type of anti-personnel landmine is non-persistent, meaning that the mines self-destruct or lose battery charge to render them inactive, reducing the danger to civilians. The official said that Ukrainian policymakers had committed to not deploying the mines in densely populated areas. Arms control experts said that even non-persistent mines pose a safety hazard. So this is huge news, guys. Okay, we are now giving Ukraine anti-personnel landmines. Absolutely insane. And we currently have U.S. nuclear forces on very high alert. We have 2 nuclear war command and control planes up in the air over the Midwest. We have a nuke sniffer airborne over the Midwest. And interestingly, we also have a B-1 strategic bomber that took off from Dyess Air Force Base in Texas near Abilene. And it is now heading out into the Atlantic. It's off the coast of Wilmington, North Carolina, which is very, very strange. Not sure where it's going. Is it going to the Middle East? I don't know, but I've never seen a B-1 take off from Texas and go out into the Atlantic like that. We'll have to continue to monitor it. And here's a copy of the nuclear doctrine, the new nuclear doctrine in Russia that Putin signed, allowing Russia to strike non-nuclear countries that are being supported by nuclear countries, basically giving Putin the green light to nuke Ukraine. Here we have pictures of these Russian nuclear fallout shelters that are being mass produced. Okay, you can clearly see here, posted by RT Russia Today. The shelter is designed to protect citizens from various threats, including radiation from nuclear explosions and radioactive contamination. Okay, so there's another picture there. You can see them loading it onto a flatbed truck. This is extremely serious, guys. We are literally on the verge of a nuclear war, and nobody cares, okay? People are more worried about Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson, all right? And here we have a picture of the ATACMS strike on Russia the other night, and it actually hit this massive arsenal right outside of the town of Karachev in Bryansk Oblast. You can see this massive arsenal here, the 67th arsenal, literally as big as this entire town, and that's what Ukraine hit with the ATACMS. And here's the Swedish World War III survival manual, okay, 28 out of 32 pages, focusing on war, nuclear war, air raids, sheltering from fallout. Here we have a picture of the Chinese vessel that could potentially have cut those undersea cables in the Baltic Sea. And North American Aerospace Defense, NORAD, will conduct a planned live fly air defense exercise near Riverside, California today. NORAD F-16s and general aviation aircraft from the Civil Air Patrol will participate in the exercise. Aircraft will operate at approximately 8,500 feet and will likely be visible to the public. So if you're in Riverside, California area, NORAD is doing some kind of an air defense exercise. Interesting timing, okay, with everything going on. And the president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, declined to confirm whether the attack on the Russian arsenal near Bryansk was carried out by an American ATACMS, but he emphasized that Ukraine has long-range weapons and will employ them. Without superfluous detail, Ukraine has long-range capabilities and produces its own long-range drones. We now have a long-range Neptune and not just one. We now have ATACMS. We're going to use it all, he said. He also said that Trump is stronger than Putin. Very interesting. And Russia is behind recent bomb threats at Czech and Slovak schools, Czech intelligence chief has reported. The director of the Czech Security Information Service, Mikhail Kudelka, said on November 18th that Russia was behind a flurry of bomb threats made against schools in Czechia and Slovakia in recent months. Hundreds of Czech and Slovak schools received bomb threats sent over email after students returned from their summer break in September, leading to multiple school closures, local media reported. So guys, get prepared. Things are really spiraling out of control. I will be monitoring this whole situation very, very closely all day and all night, and I will be in and out of the live stream today, and I will be doing a live update on this later on tonight. But make sure you have a nuclear war survival plan. It does look like Russia is about to strike Ukraine potentially with nuclear weapons. At the very least, they're probably going to use some kind of a heavy warhead, maybe from that RS-26 Rubezh, which is what Ukrainian intelligence is saying. Okay, multiple embassies being evacuated from Kyiv. Ukraine using the Storm Shadow missiles for the first time on Russian territory. So follow me on Telegram and Twitter. I post all my updates over there, including some extra content. The links to my Telegram and Twitter are in the description below this video. Sometimes YouTube doesn't send out notifications, so if you follow me over there, you'll never miss an update. And just get prepared, guys. Make sure you have your bug out bag. Make sure you have a nuclear war survival plan. Make sure you have a fallout shelter. Okay, for most people, the basement of your house is going to be the best fallout shelter. If you don't have a basement, or if you live in an area that doesn't have underground structures, you can look for buildings that are made from stone or reinforced concrete. Okay, the thicker the concrete or stone, the better. Or even brick buildings, like apartment buildings are great. Office buildings that have multiple floors. Okay, let's say you have a 4 or 5 story apartment building or office building. That's an excellent fallout shelter. You just need to get to the middle floors of that structure. So you don't want to be at the bottom and you don't want to be at the top, because the fallout is going to settle on the ground and on the roofs of every building. So if you're at the top of the building, you're going to be right underneath the fallout and the radiation is going to be very high. And if you're at the bottom of the building, then you're going to have a lot of radiation from the fallout on the ground. So you're going to want to be in the middle of the building, okay? But that's the latest breaking news that I have now. I will be back later with another update, and follow me in the 24/7 stream. I'll be updating live throughout the day over there. And until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps: prepare, practice, and persevere.